Musk accused of politicising rape of young girls in UK to attack Starmer. Now, I'm only going to mention that word once because it's very emotive, but it is the case that many were raped, and I'm not going to go on about that particular term, but it's the fact. Elon Musk has politicised the abuse of young girls in the UK in an attempt to attack Keir Starmer, a former health worker who exposed a major paedophile ring, has told The Guardian. Sara Rowbotham, who gathered evidence that led to the imprisonment of 9 men in Rochdale, said the tech billionaire had launched a political swipe at the Prime Minister that overlooked the plight of the abuse survivors. Now, the Tesla owner, who will have a key role in Donald Trump's incoming administration, said on Friday that King Charles should step in and dissolve Parliament after Labour rejected a call for a national inquiry into child grooming. Now, Musk triggered this row on Thursday over Starmer's handling of child abuse in Oldham after he suggested that the Prime Minister had failed to bring rape gangs, his words, not mine, to justice when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, Sara Rowbotham, who made hundreds of referrals detailing the abuse and sexual grooming whilst working for the NHS in Rochdale between 2005 and 2011, said this: "What is Musk's motivation for interfering? It seems very political. The person he is trying to go after is Keir Starmer. It is a political swipe that is nothing to do with the women and girls who've been abused time after time." All right, fair enough. Hold that thought there. That's Sara Rowbotham's view. And just remember this. There also have been inquiries conducted into this, investigations. There was one by Professor Alexis Jay concluded in 2022. There was another one into the events in Rochdale, published this year into the Greater Manchester Police investigation into this whole thing as well, which came out earlier this year, finding lots and lots of failings, including, let me just tell you this, Rochdale grooming gang reports key findings. Girls were left at the mercy of gangs. Dozens of offenders are still at large. Emerging threat of exploitation not addressed between 2004 and 2007. Child sex exploitation was a low priority and under-resourced by GMP, Greater Manchester Police. Statutory agencies failed to respond. I could go on, but you get the picture. Now, before we get into all this, I just been reflecting on it because it says this. One individual who's come back and said this. The man, it is strange that the richest man in the world has got time to start getting involved in UK politics. This is a man whose eldest daughter was targeted by one of these gangs. So it's not universally being welcomed, Elon Musk's intervention here. But it did get me thinking about asking you this question. Because the fundamental point about all this is that child grooming went on. It went on for years. It went on systematically in many towns, including Telford, Rochdale, Oldham, parts of Luton as well. This is an issue that has gone on for years. And I want to ask you this question. Is Elon Musk politicising the abuse of young girls to attack Keir Starmer? Is Elon Musk politicising the abuse of young girls to attack Keir Starmer? 0345 6060 973, text 84850. Ask Alexa to send a comment to LBC. You see, for me, whether Elon Musk is doing a bit of politicking or not is really beside the point. Frankly, I'm not interested in whether he is or not. I'm interested in the victims and getting to the truth about what happened and making sure that it never, ever happens again. Now, Maggie Oliver, who's former detective in Greater Manchester Police who resigned a number of years ago, as you know, I've got to declare an interest. She was the most recent winner of the Contrarian Prize, which I founded. Why did she win it? For standing up for the victims of child grooming in Rochdale. She spoke to my colleague Rachel Johnson on LBC yesterday evening, and she did not hold back on who she thinks is at fault here.
This is about a system that is completely broken, and it is quite, there is no reason why we can't get a grip of this subject if somebody wants to do so. And I have yet to see somebody who really does want to do something. And when I see Kemi Badenoch, wading in now, the Conservatives have had years and years to deal with this problem, and they failed to do so. We see social media exploding because Elon Musk has become involved, and they're making political points. They're trying to score political points on the back of what is a life-destroying and criminal behavior by, sadly, Pakistani Muslim men who believe it's okay to rape a 12-year-old child. Well, it isn't, and our laws say that is wrong. Somebody needs to get a grip, and I have lost faith in all those whose duty it is to protect children.
Well, Maggie Oliver's lost faith. I tell you, I've lost faith too. A piece in the Daily Mail today, Keir Starmer is as guilty as anyone over the failures to tackle grooming gangs. Former detective claims, that's Maggie Oliver, the same lady you just heard there, saying that the world's richest man and the Prime Minister were complicit in the worst mass crime in the history of Britain. Now, you can make of that what you will, but I tell you this, we've had multiple investigations into this, and I'm not sure we've got to the crux of this issue at all, nor do I think we've been really open and honest about the fact that there were people from a certain group that did this. And this is not to say, for heaven's sake, and I say this as a man of Pakistani heritage, and I'm very proud of my Pakistani heritage. I visited the country multiple times, countless times. I've got friends and family there. I care about the country. I love my background and my heritage. This is not to say that every individual of Pakistani heritage in this country is a child sexual exploiter, for heaven's sake. But to ignore the fact that a group of men, and they were men, largely, almost exclusively, were from Pakistani backgrounds in certain parts of the country, Rochdale, Oldham and others, were engaging in this, is to me a complete abdication of responsibility and remiss, completely remiss. And those who engage in this sort of arms race of child sexual exploitation, that, most of it's done by white men. So what? I don't care about that point. Both things can be true at the same time. It's a bit like saying you can't point out that there was systemic abuse of children in the Catholic Church for fear that every Catholic, the millions of Catholics in the entire world, are going to be tarred with a brush for being child abusers. No, the majority of Catholics are going about their business, religious people. They're not child abusers. Child abusers are child abusers. And there was a systemic problem in the Catholic Church. And there's a systemic problem in certain parts of the Pakistani community where these things have happened. Now, the fact that this was one of the reasons why, as we understand it from these investigations, why the authorities were so scared and delicate about this. And it's not even my words. I'll just read you some words here, which will actually give you a little bit more of a flavour about this, not directly from me. Let me just read you this. And I quote, "In a number of cases presented to us, particularly in cases involving groups, there's clearly an issue of ethnicity that has to be understood and addressed. As prosecutors, we shouldn't shy away from that. But if we're honest, it's the approach to the victims, the credibility issue that caused these cases not to be prosecuted in the past. There was a lack of understanding." Do you want to know who said that? Sir Keir Starmer, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. He accepted that there was an ethnicity issue around the offenders and that it was backed up, that issue was backed up by various inquiries. So I'm not blaming Keir Starmer directly for any of this. I don't know what he did know and what he didn't know. What we do know is that some of the cases were never brought to trial because they felt that the evidence was not robust enough, and they were also, some of these claims were routinely ignored by the police and social services. And when the complaints were taken seriously by prosecutors, they often concluded that there was not a realistic prospect of conviction. Now, I'm not blaming Keir Starmer. I'm just saying that there were systemic issues. Now, Maggie Oliver talks about Kemi Badenoch. Can I just say, look, the Tories were in power for 14 years. What on earth were the Tories doing by not having a public inquiry into this? What were they doing? I mean, this is cheap shots now coming from the leader of the Conservative Party calling for a public inquiry now. You're in power for 14 years. So can't trust the Tories on this. I'm sorry. I just find it absolutely disgraceful and despicable to wade in on this after 14 years. So I'll tell you what I want. As a Pakistani male, a male of Pakistani origin living in this country that feels disgusted by all of this, I'll tell you what I want. One, I want a public inquiry. And I was texting Maggie Oliver just before I came on the show because she's got a skin in the game on this because she resigned over the failure of her own force to be investigating and taking these issues seriously. I'll tell you what I want. I want a public inquiry with someone who doesn't have an axe to grind, who's going to look at all the facts, go back in time, serve the victims. And by the way, let's not wait for things to actually change in this country whilst this inquiry is being conducted. We have inquiries on all sorts of things. Well, we need an inquiry on this properly. You might say, well, what's it going to yield that we don't already know? We've already had one in Rotherham localised. Oldham want a public one, but the government has refused. Jess Phillips has said no. I don't know what her motivations are for saying no at all, other than the fact that the government's telling us that there have been multiple investigations and local inquiries done. True. But we have public inquiries on lots of things. And this is an absolutely gargantuan systemic failure where people's lives have been affected and they will never, ever truly recover. I mean, how can you? I mean, there's a piece in the Daily Mail today. How leering men pursued me when I was a 9-year-old schoolgirl. Life in a town where grooming gangs operated in plain sight and their victims got the blame. From Elizabeth Haigh. I mean, go and read it. I don't have to talk about it anymore. You get the picture. It's just really a way in, Elon Musk, isn't it, to a much deeper issue. Much deeper issue. Is Elon Musk politicising the abuse of young girls to attack Keir Starmer? I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Frankly, I couldn't care less. I care about the victims of abuse. I want a public inquiry. I want it done by people with no axe to grind. And I want the lessons not only to be learned, but to be implemented right now. Ashish in Croydon, good afternoon.
Yeah, whether Elon Musk is bringing it to the forefront or anybody else, who cares? I mean, it's been hushed up by the authorities and the police, and those who've got something to hide will take issue with people like Elon Musk bringing it to light. I mean, we're the victims, ask them. You know, do they care if it's Donald Duck or Elon Musk bringing it to light? As long as it's being brought to light.
Agreed.
Right? That's
agreed, but
Ashish,
agreed, Ashish. But what do you make then of Wes Streeting saying, the health secretary, saying that Elon Musk's comments were misjudged and certainly misinformed?
Well, he's going to say that because Labour are accused of hushing up this abuse, and also because their constituencies in the West Midlands, Lancashire, Yorkshire have high. They depend on Pakistani votes. They're afraid that if they do come out and tackle this problem as people want, they're going to lose a lot of votes.
Well, they already have lost votes on the whole Gaza issue, but some things are more important than a few votes, Ashish. I mean, surely the victims deserved the truth. We all deserve the truth.
Well, yeah, you're going to uncover the biggest hate crime in British history, because let's not beat around the bush here, right? These Pakistani Muslim gangs were targeting girls from outside their community, whether they're white girls, Sikh girls, or Hindu girls, right? They were targeting non-Muslim girls because they saw them as cheap, worthless pieces of meat. They wouldn't dream, these gangs, of targeting Muslim girls and raping them and doing what they did to the other girls. They would never do that to Muslim girls. They deliberately targeted non-Muslim girls,
why,
Sikh,
Ashish,
Hindu or white.
Why do you think, I agree with you, why do you think there was such an issue around an admission of that very simple, straightforward fact?
Because they're going to uncover some hard truths. They're going to uncover the fact that this prejudice towards non-Muslim girls, especially, and non-Muslims in general, is much more. It's a minority element in the Pakistani community, but it's much more widespread than they thought. I mean, my background. I mean, Sikhs and Hindus. Yep. We were crying out from at least the 1980s for someone to take notice of the fact that Pakistani Muslim gangs were targeting Sikh and Hindu girls. No one was listening to us. Yep. And that's why people like Mohan Singh from the Sikh Awareness Society, he's being applauded all over social media. And I never thought I would see this, but there's a video going viral on Twitter of, believe it or not, Tommy Robinson praising how the Sikhs were dealing with the grooming gang, because the Sikhs didn't just stand back. When the police didn't listen to them when Sikh and Hindu girls were being targeted, you had groups which you've heard of, like Cheer Up and Jab.
Yes, I have indeed.
Who organised protection squads outside schools and colleges because the Sikh gangs, the Sikh organisations were not scared of these Pakistani gangs.
One shouldn't have to resort to vigilante actions in a civilised society. One shouldn't have to, right? The state should protect you. But I agree.
But when someone's sister, daughter is being kidnapped and raped, people take desperate measures.
Of course they do. Look, the point is this. A lot of people have said a lot of things about Tommy Robinson. I'm no fan of his either. But the problem is that you give succor to the arguments put forward by people like that because there's an element of what they say where people feel that actually this is not being handled properly by the authorities. There is an issue here. There is a concern about being, whatever it is, perceived to be racist. Most ridiculous mindset thing I've ever come across. Why on earth would people feel concerned about being perceived to be racist if they're simply pointing out facts that there are a group of men? It's a bit like me saying there's a group of supporters of a particular football club that go around engaging in violence, right? Now, if you don't say that, how can the police or the authorities actually get their arms around the problem at all?
Well, what it is the biggest losers when the truth does finally come out are going to be the Labour Party, are going to be the authorities and the police, because their inaction due to political correctness and being afraid of being targeted as Islamophobic is going to be the biggest crime of all.
You see, I think, Ashish, this is the thing that really concerns me. Why on earth would any person, including any law-abiding Muslim in this country, think it would be Islamophobic at all to point out that there are a bunch of men of individual Pakistani heritage who are going around in grooming gangs preying on white girls? I simply can't understand it, and I never will. Ashish, thank you for your call. Sharon in Gravesend, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ali. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just want to say that I was saying to your producer that it's in this situation, I think there's very much a case of wokeness gone insane, in that we don't even want to call out anyone for fear of offending whole communities, like you said previously. And the fact is, there's abusers in every echelon of society, every place. And by saying Pakistani, by saying Catholic, and I come from a Catholic background, I don't care if people say that there are people in the Catholic Church who are abusers, because that is a fact.
Of course it is.
And we are whitewashing facts. And it seems like possibly the government and the police and authorities have whitewashed facts for fear of alienating and offending people. And it's just ridiculous.
But you see, sorry, Sharon, go on.
I do think Elon Musk, whatever his motives are, he's a powerful man, and he's got a right to say, this is a free country, we are in a democracy, whether it's his country or not, he has a right to call this out for what, even if the motives are wrong. But I don't think they are, actually, because I've just heard that his daughter was targeted, which must have been very, very scary.
You see, I agree with you. I don't know what Elon Musk's motive is, apart from the fact that he's a very rich man. He can say what he wants. He's got one of the most powerful platforms in the world on which to do it. That's his choice. I've no idea why he's wading into British politics at all. Frankly, I don't care. Frankly, I don't care, Sharon.
But maybe it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters.
I agree with you, because the issue is highlighted. Yes.
Whatever the motives are, he's using the platform correctly. And maybe, just maybe, he's doing it because he cares.
He might be, but the thing is, Sharon, no one can get away from the fact that young white girls were abused. No one can get away from the fact that Pakistani men of Pakistani heritage in gangs operating in a specific manner. This was not uncoordinated. This weren't lone wolf attacks. These were coordinated gangs going about this. And no one can get away from the fact that someone like Maggie Oliver, who resigned from the Manchester Police Force in 2012 in disgust over its neglect at handling the grooming scandal over girls in Rochdale, after battling for 18 months internally, is pulling her hair out. And I don't have any hair to pull out, but I'm absolutely and utterly disgusted by all of this.
And I don't even know that an inquiry is going to solve it. It needs to be really done by an independent body so that we can get to the bottom of this. I just feel that they're hiding something.
Well, you see, thank you, Sharon. You see, I'm not one... look, I don't like believing in going about my life believing in conspiracies or the belief that people are generally hiding stuff. I don't think this is a particularly helpful way of going about one's life. But I must say that when people are calling for a public inquiry or an independent, complete investigation on a national scale, covering all of the instances of abuse going back many years, not just to 2004 or whatever it was, because there's an issue around that. People want to go back further. That should be taken very, very seriously. And if you don't do that, people do wonder what is going on. Why is there such a reluctance by the authorities to go there? What is the cause? What is the issue here about doing that when we have inquiries on all sorts of things, including the post office scandal, quite rightly, the Hillsborough cover-up? Why should we not be having one about the abuse systematically of young girls in northern towns in this country? Why? Nikos says, you're right, Ali, ethnicity and religion plays no role in that crime. It's pure racism and religious hatred. Well, I think it is if you don't raise it, I suppose. Ken says this, does America not have the same problem? Perhaps sort their own house out first. Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I don't think we can stop Elon Musk saying what he wants. Now, joining me in the studio is Simon Danckuz, the former Labour MP for Rochdale from 2010 to 2017. During a Home Affairs Select Committee hearing in July 2014, Simon Danckuz called for Leon Britton, the Home Secretary between 1983 and 1985, to make public what he knew about a dossier of allegations against politicians presented to him by Geoffrey Dickens, another MP who was serving in Parliament as well, which could identify several historic child sex abusers. He's got an interest in this whole area. He was the MP for Rochdale as well. He was named Campaigner of the Year by the Political Studies Association in November 2014. And also, I declare an interest here, he did win the Contrarian Prize back in 2015. Simon, very good to have you. Is Elon Musk politicising the abuse of young girls to attack Keir Starmer?
No, I don't think he is. I think he's doing what we would want him to do. First and foremost, he's speaking out and sharing his views on a whole range of different issues, as we all do nowadays. That's the nature of social media, and he's entitled to do it just like anybody else. I think there are people out there, perhaps Labour politicians in particular, and it's worth pointing out that Sara Rowbotham is or has been a Labour politician, because I know you quoted her and she thinks she's speaking out against him. But they want to make this debate about Elon Musk instead of the victims.
Yes.
And there's a reason they want to do that. It's because it moves us away from pushing for a national inquiry into this issue, and it gets on to a discussion and a debate about whether Elon Musk is supporting reform or not. So that's what they're trying to do. Labour politicians are trying to move the agenda onto Elon Musk. We have to keep it on to justice for the victims of these absolutely atrocious crimes.
What will another inquiry deliver, Simon? Because there has been the Alexis J inquiry in 2022. There was the report into the failings of Greater Manchester Police by the Mayor Andy Burnham, came out earlier this year in Rochdale. Yeah. So what else will we learn from this?
Yeah, the Alexis J inquiry, which I supported and campaigned for when I was a parliamentarian. You could describe me as an architect of that inquiry, and I ensured that she was the chair of it rather than some of the other political stooges that Theresa May wanted to put in there at the time. I think she did a good job, but the point is it was very historical focused. So it looked at Cyril Smith, it looked at the dossier that you're talking about in terms of Leon Britton and so on and so forth. This really needs to be an inquiry. As some of your callers have said, it needs to be truly independent, so the terms of reference can't be set up by Labour ministers. Labour are quite clearly culpable in some of what has gone on in terms of the rape gangs that have been taking place across the United Kingdom. So it has to have the power to insist on people coming to give evidence, and it has to be able to recommend prosecution of public servants, perpetrators and politicians. It's very different to what's gone before.
You're saying Labour's culpable. That's quite a charge, Simon.
Oh, well, no, absolutely. I've made it clear, and not just recently. I made it clear in 2017, in 2023, that senior Labour politicians came to me, Jim Dobbin, my neighbouring politician who'd been around Parliament for many years, and he said to me at the time, listen, don't mention the ethnicity, don't mention the religion of these perpetrators. That won't do us any good at all politically. And then more recently, Tony Lloyd, who was chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party, he was standing to be the Labour Police Commissioner for Greater Manchester. He was running into that. And in 2012, he said very similar things to me. He said, I don't believe ethnicity is an issue in this. It's best avoided. And he said that to me in Parliament, in a corridor in Parliament before Prime Minister's questions. I mean, this is the reality of it. And he's made it clear. He made a speech in Westminster Hall in 2012 saying he didn't believe ethnicity was a factor, and then started drawing comparisons between these perpetrators and Jimmy Savile. I see very little relevance, to be honest, but that's a speech he made on this issue.
Very, very disturbing.